Hey all, here OS Reviews. In some of our recent videos on charging products and power banks, I've demonstrated using a yellow accented cable that you guys have been asking about. So this is a model from AOHI that we reviewed a while back, and it's a pretty cool modular cable that you can unscrew to make longer and shorter, supporting Thunderbolt speeds, so very fast for data transfer in addition to charging as well. So today we're taking a look at another product from the same folks. This time it's a power bank called the Starship 240W, and as the name implies, it reaches an impressively fast charging speed, so it can juice up most smartphones as well as laptops in around just an hour or so if they support faster charging protocols. Has a built-in display as well, and continues with the design incorporating these yellow accents like we saw on their cable, giving it a slightly more stylish appearance. This power bank's capacity comes in at 27,600 milliamp hours, and I would say it's a close alternative to Kuktek P-Series power bank from a Xiaomi ecosystem brand that we also reviewed a couple of months back, and is another example of a model that features a built-in screen which allows you to gauge the battery percentage as well as the specific charging speed. So this might be one of its closest rivals in addition to models from Anker as well as Basis as part of the newer generation of GaN or gallium nitride based power banks and chargers that's able to reach a faster wattage despite a compact size, which is good to see. So this is just one more option throwing into the mix. Now, one point of clarification is that 240 watt output maximum is if you're using multiple ports simultaneously. The fastest that you can get out of a single USB Type-C port is still going to be 140 watts. But even so, that's already wicked fast in most cases, and you can charge up both a phone and a computer at maximum rate simultaneously to reach that maximum output when combined together. In fact, some of those breakdowns in terms of maximum speed per port is labeled down below. The second one being 100 watt, the first being 140, and then a USB Type-A full-sized port can supply up to 22.5 watts for older devices, and the power bank itself can be charged back up at 140 watts when you plug it into the wall. In terms of some references of this capacity, it's enough to supply a charge to most phones these days around 3 to 4 times, as well as laptops around 1 to 1.5 times, which is not bad for a still relatively compact model which is airplane safe. So these specs in terms of capacity as well as the maximum charging rate is pretty competitive out of the power banks with a built-in LCD display, and they're also claiming to use high-quality battery cells inside, which will supposedly retain 90% battery health on average even after 2 years of use. Obviously, those longer-term claims can't be completely validated at this current moment, but in time it'll be interesting to keep an eye out and see if those are actually valid or not, because I have seen power banks kind of sitting in storage perhaps, and after a year or two the cell really does degrade and no longer holds a charge. In some cases, if it's a poorly made battery, it may start to swell. So that's one of the biggest flaws in a lot of tech items. If the battery is not replaceable, you have to eventually throw it out, making it a disposable item. It's a common point of failure across modern tech. So higher quality cells in here, if they can really last longer across more cycles, improving on the longevity, that would definitely be a selling point. They claim there's different safety protocols that it meets, so it should be resistant against overheating as well as overcharging. Once your device reaches 100%, the charging will also automatically stop on the device. And last but not least, the company does also have an older model called the Starship 140W. As the name implies, that one is just slightly slower in terms of the maximum output. But interestingly enough, the 140 watt version actually has a larger battery capacity at over 40,000 milliamp hours instead. So it can charge devices up a couple more times before the battery depletes. And that might be another alternative if you like the design and you don't mind a slightly slower charging rate. So packaging-wise, they are inspired by this mecha, more cyberpunk look going on. Some of the specs are just reiterated. Seems to be where their design inspiration came from for this particular model. We'll take a closer look at the power bank itself in a moment, but further down below, continuing with the yellow accents, we have a user guide, which interestingly enough is actually glued underneath the foam. And because again, all these pieces are using adhesive for it to be securely placed in the box, you actually have to use quite a lot of force to yank it out and find that inner box buried underneath all of the glue and foam. So I wish they made that part a little bit more seamless, but at last you'll find access to the aforementioned user guide, again pretty well presented with all of the fonts. Yellow motif continues to expand, as well as a included USB Type-C to Type-C charging cable, but this one is just a kind of more typical black color as opposed to their more premium cables that they sell separately, having more of that vibrant yellow. And then located in the separate bag is going to be an optional protective pouch that seems to be bundled with the charger at this point in time, though it seems to be a recycled accessory from their previous 140-watt version of their power bank, as opposed to being custom made just for this one. But it is just a fabric duffel bag, so it slides in here without too many problems if you're just trying to protect it when taking it with you on the road. Some top-line specs are also shown on the packaging here, including LED notifications. So if it's amber, it means it's fast charging, green is just trickle charging, blue is standard charging speeds, as well as having power delivery 3.1 support as well for compatible devices. Closer look at the design, it is built out of polycarbonate plastic but has a nice density to it, including this visor look on the front that kind of curves off at the edges, although it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet. However, the mirror treatment hides the screen from view, so when it's turned off, it is completely invisible until you flick it back onto life, after which point you'll be able to see the LCD screen underneath turn on. And it continues the whole yellow accent of the design, so we have all the power indicators as well as the fonts in the same style. So I have to admit that the aesthetics are done quite well from a design perspective, and it's relatively easy to read as long as you're not in direct sunlight. In most shaded or indoor conditions, you can still make it out, and the contrast actually looks great for an LCD. I almost thought it was an OLED screen when just peeking at it because it blends in so well with the rest of the frame. So very stylized, and here's how it stacks up against that aforementioned one that we saw from previously. The screen size might be a touch larger on the Xiaomi Kooktuk power bank, plus having an LED light strip down below there, but honestly from a functionality perspective, this is going to still be quite similar. Otherwise, located on the top is going to be all the I/O, inclusive of that LED accent light, which is a unique feature to this model. So again, it can change different colors, and you can glance down to see the current charging speed without reading the specific output on the screen if you just have it facing upwards like this. That is a nice design touch carried over from their premium charging cable that also has a built-in LED status light of its own to indicate the current charging speed. Now you'll find the Type A, the two USB Type-C ports, along all the edges and sides as well. So again, it looks pretty unique as far as a power bank is concerned. One thing I will say though is, like the Xiaomi Kooktuk and also other LCD-enabled power banks we've seen recently, it's not really a touchscreen, and so you're just looking at the status info without necessarily being able to swipe or change the wallpaper, things like that, and this particular model does not connect to any smartphone app. Not that a power bank really needs one, to be honest, but that is a feature that we have seen on some of the basis models previously, which allow you to track and monitor charging from a device remotely further away. So the app capability is a function that you won't find on this particular model. Maybe it is something that we'll see down the line. Alright, so moving into demonstration and testing the charging performance, plugging it into a device here, and after a split second, rapid charging will begin. And this is a smartphone, so I do anticipate the speeds to be not as fast as on, say, a laptop in this instance, but right now the power bank is displaying around 24 watt as the charging output. This large 5,000 milliamp hour capacity battery is only going to take under 40 minutes to completely fill up. And we can also tell that the light here has now turned yellow as well to indicate that fast charging is in progress. Now, something that is a little bit strange is when I try testing it with a USB cable that shows the charging speed, it actually seems stumped, only showing 0.1 watt, which is obviously not accurate looking at both the phone as well as the battery side. But it's the first time I've encountered the actual cable not being correct. It's worked fine with other power banks I've tested, but the incompatibility with tester cables is a curious case. Somehow the components that they used here, either the chipset or the port, might be just a little bit different from other power banks that I've seen previously. But anyways, let's also try charging a second device just for testing. This is going to be more of a laptop. Split second longer, you can see that charging here has started on the device. The laptop here now drawing around 20 watts or so. The phone again continues to draw 24 watts. And as the charging is in progress, the entire unit still remains pretty cool in terms of thermals, doesn't really overheat or get too hot either. But one takeaway is, if you really wanted to leverage the fastest 140 watts charging speed, you would need a compatible device that can accept 140 watts input. For instance, maybe certain OnePlus phones, Xiaomi phones would be some good examples. Let's also try charging the power bank back up, and we can verify that indeed it will reach over 100 watts in this current testing. So it can indeed reach faster speeds if you have more compatible devices that you're using it with, although keep in mind that sometimes the charging rate may dip down a little bit just to prolong the battery health, so that 140 watt is more of a peak performance at certain points in time. For instance, when the battery is around 20%, when it's trying to first fill up a little bit more, it may charge faster and then gradually slow down as it gets more full. So there we have it. That's been our hands-on review of the AOHI Starship 240 watt power bank, and primarily I would say it's the styling as well as the design and the built-in LCD screen that sets this one apart, along with having very competitive charging speeds that are among the best that you'll find at this point in time for a more compact charger. But keep in mind, again, whether or not you'll be able to reach those fastest speeds depends on if your device also supports fast charging. Again, select newer Xiaomi as well as OnePlus phones might be able to fully take advantage of that rapid top-up speeds. But even if not, you can still charge up, again, most phones and computers in just around an hour or so, reaching the fastest charging speeds that the devices are capable of, and could also be a bit more future-proof. Even though the average, again, charging speed might be lower at this point in time for most phones, it might continue to grow in the future, and this charger will continue to be compatible with those devices once the industry adopts faster charging speeds across the board. As for some slight cons, again, the really cool visor design does mean a bit more fingerprints and technically missing app control, although that might be more of a secondary point. And I do like the fact that it has, again, that LED accent light for easier visibility up top and remaining pretty cool in operation as it's charging multiple devices. So all things said, it still is a pretty powerful and fast compact power bank using GaN. You can check out more details if you like the way this one looks in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been Starship Series 240 watt power bank.